What's going on, folks? It's late. I'm in the house right now. And you know what? This week, we're doing a couple of videos considering security. And I wanted to jump into a lab like SIMULEARN, where I can get some hands on practice on one of the concepts that we're talking about this week. And so I'll consider core security concepts. I'll drop a link in this post so that you can get access to this free lab yourself and kind of go through some security concepts. So let's jump right into it. I'll go ahead and choose that. AWS SIMULEARN Core Security Concepts. Yeah, it's super late, as you can see, but that's all right. Welcome to my home. Got all the lights on at night. I'm just kidding. Let's jump into this course. It looks like it popped up at us, and we can kind of read more about the course if we'd like to. As I get closer to the bottom, it sounds like there's a scenario here. Scenario says, you know what, we're going to help improve security at the city's stock exchange by ensuring that support engineers can perform only authorized actions. Okay. And our learned objectives is to utilize identity and access management, the creation process between users, roles, and groups, identify structure and components of identity and access management policies, and the shared responsibility model, right? A lot of the core security concepts, if you're new to AWS or you're trying to grab something like the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification, this might be a great lab to jump into. So I'm tired, but that's okay. I'm pumped, right? I'm pumped up to kind of get you to understand these security concepts, and I'm going to do some learning myself, right? So let's enroll for free. So I'll hit this free button here, and we'll jump right into it, and let's see what this lab has to offer us, right? All right, so looks like we can start learning now. We'll hit that button, and let's start the lab up. Give it some time to load here. Awesome. So we'll get started right away with this thing. With this guided method, we'll have an opportunity to kind of speak to the scenario here. After this, we'll put a little bit of practice in ourselves, and then there should be a DIY section at the very end where we can kind of do it ourselves, right? But here we are. We're speaking to Morgana Key, the security analyst. We need to help improve security at the city stock exchange by ensuring that support engineers can perform only authorized actions. And you know what, we just read that. So it just presents itself to us again. Message that I have here from Morgana Key. Hello and welcome to the City Stock Exchange. Thanks for answering our call. And I'm going to respond with no problem. How can I help you? We recently decided to create a support engineering team. As this team grows, we want to be able to manage users efficiently, providing all support engineers the same set of permissions. Now, can AWS help with this? Here's my response. Yes, AWS has a service called AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM. You can use IAM to create policies that manage AWS users and groups, and you can use permissions to allow and deny access to AWS resources. Using identity and access management, you can manage your security requirements at scale. Okay, so I'll send that as a message. Let's listen for the response. So with policies, do I need to learn every type of permission for all AWS services? I just want my support engineers to have read-only access to EC2 and RDS. So my response is no, you don't. Identity and access management delivers pre-built AWS managed policies to help you get started quickly. 2 pre-built policies provide read-only access to Amazon EC2 and Amazon RDS. Okay. So I sent that message and her response is great. And if you don't want to use those predefined policies, can I create my own? My response is yes, right? You can create your own custom policies and apply it to your resources. AWS has tools that can help you create policy files, right? So response is wow. Sounds like there are a lot of options. How about the actual creation of a user? I would like my support engineers to have access to the AWS Management Console and to developer tools. I also want to assign users to the support engineering team right away. My response here is when you create users, you can assign the permissions to access resources through the AWS Management Console, AWS CLI, or developer tools. You can also place users in groups and assign permissions. Thanks. This sounds promising. So just like what the screen says, folks, Let's do it. Let's jump into it. And again, we get to learn. First of all, it's going to tell us about the architectural diagram. We're going to be able to read that, kind of get a feel on what this architecture should and will look like. Step number 2 is practice. We'll have an opportunity to go through some steps that will be given to us as a guide to kind of get this done, to kind of learn the core security concepts around AWS. And then there's the other section here, this DIY section, where we get a chance to do something ourselves, right? So hit continue. And again, I don't know if you see me go through a lab before, but in my previous lab, we talked about Dr. Newton. Dr. Newton is a chat bot that's built directly into the lab. If I ever get stuck, if I need a question, if I need some type of assistance, here I am. I can just jump right into the chat with this chat bot, who is Dr. Newton, and I can probably solve my issue, right? So we'll hit continue there, and we'll just kind of step through this learning process. There's 6 steps here, and this first one talks about, you can see over here on the far left side of the screen, I'll highlight it, but it basically talks about using identity and access management as a solution for a group called support engineers with limited permissions. And as we're reading the architecture design, let's go to the next step here. It looks like this group is support engineers. We're going to manage their permissions, and then we're going to give them read-only access to EC2. So as you see on the screen, we get to describe instances here, but we don't get to like terminate an instance. So we have read-only access. We cannot modify the service, right? And so let's look at the next step here. Well, it looks like the identity and access management users are created and added to the support engineers group. Once we get that policy perfect, now they can interact with the EC2s in the way that we see fit with the right limits by only describing or reading the resource and not actually modifying it. Step 5 says all users that belong to the group will inherit the permissions that we assign to the group, right? And step 6 is, multiple policies can be attached to the same user to create some granular permissions, so we can kind of refine the permissions. So that is the architectural design. The next thing that we need to do is hit the practice button. Let's jump into it, right? Let's get those guided steps so we can create this ourselves. And so our account is being provisioned. It looks like we got a few more moments left for that account to be provisioned. So we'll give it a few, and then we'll hit the continue button and jump into an AWS lab. We'll jump into an AWS account. All right, so we'll hit the open console button up here on the top right so we can jump into an AWS console of our own, one that's been provided to us for this lab. All right, so core security concepts. We'll jump right into it, folks. It looks like, fix my screen here. There we go. Okay, we got an AWS account. Now, the first thing that we need to do is search for this service where you are going to be able to create users and groups. In this case, we'll create a group for support engineers. All right, we'll do just that. We'll go to identity and access management. So I'll type that in the search bar here at the top. IAM is the name of the service. And so I see it right here. So I'll choose that. Now, the next thing that I need to do is go to user groups. So I'll build out a user group, right? So I'll create a group. We're going to call this group support engineers. Okay, it's case sensitive, and so we're going to respect the lab, what the lab has given us, and this is what they want us to call the group, support engineers. We'll scroll down here. And we want to give the support engineers EC2 read-only access. So all I got to do is type the name of the service, Amazon EC2. All right, and we want read-only access. So there is a AWS managed. This is a predefined policy that AWS has given, and it allows us to have read-only access to the support engineers group. And so I'm going to choose this policy. Okay, I got the policy selected. Now what I want to do is choose create user group. So we got support engineers as a user group created. Problem is though, there are no users a part of this group. So there are no identities to inherit the permission set. Okay. And so if I go to users, I'll be able to create a user. So choose to create one. Now I'm going to call this first user, we're going to call him support engineer 1. We want to provide user access to the management console. We want a custom password that we're going to create here. And that custom password is going to be support. So support password 123 is what the lab has given us. So let's type that again to make sure we get it right. All right. And so we can also choose to show the password. And so it looks like we did type exactly what the lab wanted us to do. Okay. So users must create a new password. No, we got the one that we like. And I think it's our opportunity now to hit the next button. Now the next page that we get to allows us to add this user to that group that we created. And of course, we're going to choose the support engineers group. Right. And so I'll just hit the checkbox on that group that we've created. Already has the policy, the attached policy that is Amazon EC2 read-only access. So I'll just simply scroll down here and choose the next button. This gives me a little summary of what we've created. Support engineer 1 as a user. That's going to be a part of the support engineers group. We got a custom password for this person to sign in with. And so I just want to create this user. Right. So good deal. We get this nice sign in URL. And all of that, so that if we want to get connected, we can simply just copy this. Let's return to the user list since I got that copied. All right. So I need to get to an incognito tab. So if you're running this lab yourself so that you don't sign out into the main account that's running the lab, you can just go to an incognito tab. And once you jump into an incognito window, use that sign in on that sign in URL that you got after you created the user. It's going to populate the account ID. You need to type the username. I think it's support-engineer 1. And then the password. I remember that password. It was support password 123. And we'll sign in and make sure we get that right. It worked out well. So we created that user just fine. Did we create the group just fine? I think in a few moments we'll be able to see if we did. If we created that group the right way, we'll be able to search the service. So EC2, right? We should be able to have read-only access, remember? And so I'll go ahead and click the service called EC2, and I'll have an opportunity to get into North Virginia as a region. So I'll click that here at the top, and I'll go into North Virginia. That's what the lab wants me to do. And once I in North Virginia as a region, you can see that there is an instance running here, right? So there's one instance running, so that's perfect. Okay, so I'll just choose that, right? Let's choose that running instance. It's called lab server, right? Now we got read-only access, so it makes perfect sense why I'm able to jump into EC2 and take a look at the compute units that are here. All right, but let me select this particular compute unit and let me try and terminate the instance. I'll hit terminate here to delete it. Let's see what happens. Well, I get an error message, and that error message says something important. Right? You are not authorized to perform, and that's right here at this top line, you're not authorized to perform this operation. This user that was given to me for this lab doesn't have the right policy to kind of get that done, right? And so we've done it. This is the lab. And before we get out of here, let's go back to identity and access management. And now we have an opportunity to kind of see the permissions that we granted this user. So I'll go to identity and access management in this account. And we can look at the Amazon EC2 read-only access policy. Here we are. Let's expose that. So the reason why we were able to kind of jump into that user who was part of that group and view EC2, because here is the action that is allowed. I get to describe EC2 instances from the CLI standpoint. If I wanted to describe EC2 instances from the command line, I would be able to do it. So when I jump into the console, I'll be able to kind of view those EC2 instances. But that's the only action that I see outside of getting security groups and being able to watch load balancers and metrics around the compute units and describing auto scaling groups. So I get to describe my compute, right, and the metrics around the compute, but I do not get to modify, right? And so I hope that this lab was insightful to you. If you're starting your journey in the cloud, if you're trying to grab that cloud practitioner, these are the core concepts that will be a part of that thing. Do understand that there's another portion to the SIMULEARN lab, excuse me, and I'll leave that up to you, right? This next section is DIY. We had some guided steps to kind of get what we got done, right? Creating a group, assigning user to that group. So now that that group has a policy, that user can make those actions that are stated on that policy, on that JSON document, right? But now it's your turn. I want you to go out into SIMULEARN, into Skill Builder, find this lab, and I'll have it in the link in the post there. Do the DIY section and let me know, right? What errors you ran into, things that you learned from this. I think it's pretty fun. It's a super easy, super quick lab to kind of jump into, kind of get your feet wet with some security concepts within AWS. So again, I'm Ario. See you later on the next one, folks.